My question for you, Zali, of course you've been asked this question before, but if there was a hung parliament after the 21st of May, and I know you guys in what so-called teal independence have got climate change right up at the top of your list of demands. Also, a accountability or a federal ICAC, a National Integrity Commission. But where would the ABC fit with that? Because one could argue the ABC is part of the accountability structure of the institutional strength of Australian democracy. Would you put yourself on the line to get the ABC into that accountability agenda in the event of a negotiation?
Thank you. I'm just a bit disappointed you've used that term. It's a parliament of balance, not a. Anyway, look, yes.
Anyway, go on.
There you go. We have to start, but terminology is important because it entrenches the thinking. You repeat a simple slogan, 3-word slogan often enough, and that becomes what everybody remembers, and people just absorb that. And we know the current Prime Minister is very good at that. And so it's so important to think of the terminology we use, and we're seeing the Prime Minister and the status quo. At times Labor is guilty of it as well, and we know elements of the media are guilty of it, of trying to feed this idea that a parliament of balance would actually lead to chaos. Despite the fact that I could say, having been there for the last 3 years, there's plenty of chaos in a majority government. I've seen members of parliament withhold their vote, threaten to cross the floor to get an alternative agenda up, to try and gain power and influence over government, to embarrass government. And too often I see the two-party machine work because they're so focused on wedging each other. So Parliament of Balance can only be a good thing for democracy. And I agree, it's important that the ABC be part of that, of the considerations.
Is it on your shopping list?
It's on my shopping list.
Well, to what quantum?
Well, I wouldn't be getting into those kind of specifics. But look, for me, and I can only speak for me, because the beauty of independence is that we are not united. You can get a number of members of parliament that will be there to focus on legitimately the merits of legislation. They will not be told by backroom deals, by power brokers holding back their pre-selections, how and what they should support and what they don't. They will look at it on their merits. So I will look at ways in which, and legislations that will strengthen the independence of the ABC, strengthen the integrity and the accountability of government, because no matter who is in government, it is so important that that accountability be there. So whether that's through the Federal Integrity Commission, through the measures necessary to ensure a strong, independent national broadcaster, they are all absolutely priorities for me, and I would hope for other members of parliament going on a platform of integrity, that would also be a priority.
Thanks. Sarah Hanson-Young, thanks for your line, ABC is Australia and Australia is the ABC, and thanks also for your media diversity inquiry, which has been so beneficial to helping Australians lift their consciousness about media and disinformation in this country. You bravely said that you want a Murdoch Royal Commission, even though you've had Malcolm and Kevin give you evidence and you've had to interrogate the News Corporation executives. But what did you learn about media diversity? We're now in a digital revolution. It's unbelievable the amount of material we can all get access to in any research capacity, and of course there's disempowerment as well as fake news that's distributed. There's collateral damage from the digital revolution. What did you learn about Australia in particular, its media, and what can be done to secure its integrity within what is now a global revolution?
Thanks, Quentin. I think there was a lot of things that have come out of that inquiry. But firstly, and I did mention it in my speech, but the overarching theme that came through is this desperation for people to want to have faith in the news, that they want to believe what they read, that they have a cynicism of what is published, and that is overwhelmingly with the daily newspapers, and then the syndication of that through other platforms. The concentration of media in Australia, of course, is one of the highest in the world, and it's gotten worse at a time when, as you say, we now consume our media in a much broader, faster, diverse way. We've got more access to information than we've ever had before, and yet people trust it less. And I think that's the challenge that we face. While you can access more information in more ways, more often, faster, the media concentration, the ownership has meant that so much of that is syndicated that people aren't getting their local news anymore. And that was something that came through really strongly. People really feel frustrated that they don't know what's going on in their local community. That leads to a lack of accountability in their local community. Local councils are one of the areas which just there's no reporting anymore.
So journal of record.
Yeah, journal of record, investigations. We talk about the need for a federal ICAC, at a national level, but boy, some of the levels of corruption and cronyism that happens at a local level, which just goes unchecked because we don't have local journalists on the ground and a way of getting that information out. So you can see all these things happening at these different levels. Meanwhile, you've got this negative attack and narrative coming out day after day after day from leaders, particularly in the Morrison government, against the public broadcaster. And you've got the Murdoch press in particular continuing to grow, syndicate, and just cut out anything that's local or anything that they don't like. And through that process, asking questions and pressing the News Corp executives over the way the News Corporation had reported on climate change was by far the most illuminating. We are so backwards in this country on our climate action because I fundamentally believe of the stranglehold that the Murdoch press has had over this issue. And we are now at a point where, you travel around the rest of the world, and I saw this when I was in Glasgow. People are shaking their heads and wondering what on earth is wrong in Australia. And I put that down to the unchecked, unelected, undemocratic power that the Murdoch press has had over that issue here. And of course, the other key issue was you can be the most powerful man in this country, Prime Minister, and still be afraid of what you're going to say and do because of what might be published on the front page of the Daily Telegraph or the Australian. And to hear Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull both admit under oath in our Senate inquiry that they were scared, that they felt pressured, that they couldn't do what they wanted to do because they were too worried about the impact and the blowback from the Murdoch press. That says everything about how unchecked that power is. Now, the antidote, I believe, is a properly well-funded independent public broadcaster, but also a set of new media regulations that are fit for purpose. We don't have a single one-stop shop media regulator in this country that is up to date with the digital world and the current media ownership. So we've got a bit of work to do.
Thanks. Michelle Rowland, thanks very much for your explicit commitments here today, and also for your declarative statement that an Albanese government won't be privatising the ABC. The thing that came out for me, and Kerry O'Brien mentioned it in his remarks, and I know you'll probably expect this, is that a commitment from Labor to go beyond where you are at the moment. Now, I understand you'll be, if you become the Communications Minister after the 21st of May, you're a portfolio minister and you have to argue within the Expenditure Review Committee of the Cabinet. You've already done that with the Shadow Expenditure Review Committee. You've indicated a pathway for stable or certain funding, and that you've given us the 5-year pledge for which all of us here are grateful, I'm sure. But can you just expand a bit about the pathway? Because the ABC is not just emergency services and news and current affairs, it's also drama and original content, it's documentary, it's children's, it's the vast genre list that any public broadcaster could have. Explain to us what you mean, a pathway. Would you enter into a negotiation with the ABC and SBS about what their content demands? Because video streamers now got the eyeballs of all Australians.
I think there's 3 points there. The first is that we would always be informed by being consultative with the ABC and including, and I'm very grateful to ABC friends and alumni for the input that they've had to the suite of policies that I outlined that we've already announced as part of this election. So we would continue to be consultative with the ABC about what their needs are. And bear in mind too, Kerry, that, you know...
I'll correct that, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Quentin even. You're as esteemed as one another. That's all.
Bless you. Go on.
Bear in mind that what I've described in the suite that we've announced, it goes to, and the ABC being independent, of course, their content production would be up to them. We are looking beyond a single portfolio range. This is soft power, this is democratic institutions, this is emergencies, this is a resilience framework as well. So we would be informed by being consultative with the ABC, which would be a definite reversal from what's going on at the moment. The second point is that we would be willing to take ideas. There are many institutions, as I know you're aware, beyond ABC Friends, journalist organisations, foundations, philanthropic bodies that have very clear ideas about how to take our public broadcasters forward. So it would be consultative with them as well. But I think at the end of it, and this is the third point I would make, is we would be very, in fact, completely evidence-based and principles-focused. And that is the ABC must remain independent, it must be capable of fulfilling its charter, and it must be for all Australians. So this would be broad-ranging, but I can assure you of this, that under Labor, the ABC would always do better. We're not looking, and part of the 5-year funding term announcement is this: we are willing to look beyond the short-term political cycle to guarantee effective and stable funding for the ABC. So we have kept this deliberately broad because we want to seek input, but it is there as a very important input and also to be informed by the evidence before us.
Anderson and ITA, I'll just finish on this one, Cassandra. Anderson and ITA, David Anderson, the MD, and ITA, the chair of the ABC, had commissioned the Deloitte's report, which looked at whatever money it was available within, say, the drama budget or the genre budgets of the ABC, was underwriting original Australian content. The reason I mention the video streamers who now have access to all the eyeballs of Australia through the Wi-Fi distribution system, it's about the maintenance of Australian identity, which is in the charter of the ABC, a sense of national cohesion and Australian identity. Is that a way forward for such a negotiation, looking at the ecosystem of production, not just within the ABC, but more broadly to the production industry?
It absolutely needs to be, and I had a few things to say a few days ago about the availability of sport on free-to-air, which includes the ABC as well.
There seems to be bipartisan support for that. No, not. Anyway, go on.
But it is a fact that the international over-the-top organisations have deeper pockets than governments in many cases. So it does need to be considered as part of the whole ecosystem. And let's be clear as well. The ABC has been at the forefront of new technologies. The ABC was one of the early adopters of podcasts. They're sort of seen as a bit old school now, but once upon a time, the ABC was probably one of the only, certainly in terms of its breadth, organisations doing that. ABC, I view, is so successful again because it got first mover in. Not only because it's free, because it got first mover in, and it's been innovative since then. So it does need to be seen in the context of that ecosystem. But it also needs to be seen in the context of there's going to be a whole digital dividend too in the next 10 years. And without getting technical, that will impact on the use of spectrum, transmission costs and so forth. Efficiencies have been made at the ABC, and full credit should go to the ABC for doing that. And future efficiencies will be realised as a result of a long piece and an enormous piece of work that hasn't been done over the last 9 years of transforming from the analogue 30-year-old Broadcasting Services Act we are now to bringing it into the digital age. So all that will be part of it.
There's a cost-effective future through the digital distribution revolution system.
That's what the evidence shows now. That's exactly what the evidence shows now.
So we need to audit that and get a precise idea of where that can take us.
That would be an excellent idea.
Okay, Sarah, you quickly, and that's it for me.
I just want to jump in there. I think this next few years, and Michelle, let's hope we're at the table negotiating over this. I think you're right. We have to make sure we've got our eyes wide open when it comes to making the most of the efficiencies with the spectrum and the digital revolution that's coming. But we need to make sure that the ABC is the benefit of that and public broadcasting is the benefit of that, because what is going on right now is you've got the commercial players, the big tech companies lining up to fill that space, and they're already got their hands out for government support to do it. So actually the ABC has to be the main beneficiary of it. Yeah.
Authorised by Margaret Reynolds, ABC Friends, Fishwyck.